On the morning of September 12, 2001, millions of Americans made a decision that felt completely rational. They decided not to fly. They had just watched planes weaponized against buildings. The images were on every screen, in every home, in every conversation. The feeling was overwhelming and unanimous. Flying was not safe. And as a direct consequence, they drove instead. And over the 12 months that followed, an estimated 1,600 additional Americans died in car accidents. Deaths that would not have occurred statistically if those travelers had flown as they otherwise would have. They did not switch from a dangerous activity to a safer one. They switched from a safer one to a more dangerous one, because the dangerous one felt familiar and the safe one now felt vivid and terrifying. That is not irrationality. That is the availability heuristic. Welcome to the Critical Thinking Literacy channel. I'm John Balla. Today we examine one of the most pervasive and consequential cognitive biases ever documented. One that shapes how we assess risk, form opinions, vote, invest, and raise our children. And one that the media, politicians, and advertisers have been exploiting for as long as any of them have existed. In 1973, psychologists Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman published a foundational paper introducing the concept of the availability heuristic. Their definition was precise. We evaluate the frequency of events or the probability of outcomes based on how easily relevant examples come to mind. Availability heuristic. Judging how likely something is by how easily you can think of an example of it. In general, this is a reasonable shortcut. Common events are usually easier to recall than rare ones, because we have encountered them more often. If you can easily think of 10 examples of something, it probably happens fairly often. The heuristic works most of the time in most ordinary situations. The problem arises when the ease of recall is driven not by actual frequency, but by something else entirely. Tversky and Kahneman identified 3 conditions under which the availability heuristic systematically leads us astray. Each one is worth understanding on its own. Driver 1. Vividness. The more emotionally striking, dramatic, or sensory an event, the more easily it is recalled. A plane crash produces images of fire, wreckage, and human loss. A car accident on a suburban road produces a traffic report. Both can kill you. Only one generates the neural encoding that makes it feel probable. Paul Slovik's research on risk perception documented this precisely. People rated tornadoes as more lethal than asthma attacks, when in fact, asthma kills approximately 20 times more Americans annually. The tornado is vivid. The asthma death is quiet. Driver 2. Recency. Events that happened recently are more accessible in memory than events that happened years ago, even if the underlying probability has not changed. A stock market crash 12 months ago looms larger in a financial decision than a crash from a decade earlier, even if the structural conditions are identical. Insurance purchases spike in flood-prone communities immediately after floods, and then gradually decline as the memory fades, even as the underlying risk remains constant. Driver 3. Media amplification. This is the most structurally consequential driver in the modern information environment. The news media operates on a principle so well established, it has its own phrase. If it bleeds, it leads. Dramatic, rare, emotionally charged events receive disproportionate coverage. Quiet, common, chronic events receive almost none. The result is that the information environment systematically inflates the perceived frequency of dramatic risks and deflates the perceived frequency of mundane ones. The news media operates not on a principle of accurate representation, but on one of emotional engagement. We see the rare and the terrifying, while the common and the chronic remain invisible. Neuroscience explains precisely why this bias is so powerful and so difficult to resist. When we encounter a vivid, emotionally charged event, whether in real life or through media, the amygdala encodes it with high emotional salience. This is not a bug, it is a feature. Our ancestors survived in part because they remembered dangerous things vividly. A predator encountered once deserves more mental real estate than a berry patch visited 100 times. The problem is that this vivid emotional encoding by the amygdala can completely bypass the prefrontal cortex. the part of our brain responsible for statistical reasoning and logical assessment. The brain's retrieval system does not sort memories by frequency. It sorts them by salience, recency, and emotional intensity. Your brain runs a quick search not through a database of statistics, but through a personal archive of memorable moments. And as we have seen, the most memorable moments are almost never the most representative ones. We must learn to distinguish what is vivid from what is actually likely. There is a more dangerous variant of the availability heuristic that operates not just in individual minds, but across entire societies. Cass Sunstein and Timur Kuran named it the availability cascade. An availability cascade is a self-reinforcing feedback loop. A dramatic event receives media coverage. The coverage increases the event's availability in public memory. The heightened availability increases perceived risk. The heightened perceived risk generates public concern. The public concern generates more media coverage, and so on, until the perceived threat is vastly larger than the actual one. The 9/11 example from our opening is the availability cascade at its most measurable. The images of those planes were so vivid, so unprecedented, so saturating of the media environment that they produced a nationwide recalibration of risk that was precisely backwards. The availability heuristic is not a curiosity of laboratory psychology. It operates in virtually every domain of daily life where risk, frequency, or probability is being judged. Case study 1. Crime and the news. Crime rates in the United States have declined substantially over the past 3 decades. Yet in most years, the majority of Americans believe crime is rising. The vivid crime story is available. The statistical trend is not. Case study 2. Lottery and gambling. Lottery winners are announced publicly and celebrated. Losers are invisible. The availability heuristic makes winning feel more probable than the mathematics warrant because the wins are vivid and the losses are silent. Case study 3. Medical decision-making. Patients frequently refuse beneficial medications after encountering a single vivid story about a rare side effect. The rare outcome is vivid. The statistical benefit is abstract and invisible. Case study 4. Political risk assessment. Emphasizing dramatic, vivid threats increases their perceived probability in the minds of voters. Conversely, chronic, slow-moving threats that produce no vivid imagery receive far less attention than their actual magnitude warrants. The availability heuristic cannot be eliminated. It is wired into the architecture of human memory, but it can be identified and corrected for. The discipline required is a simple one, though not an easy one. When you find yourself assessing the probability or frequency of something, ask 2 questions. 1. Am I estimating this from memory or from data? And 2, is what comes to mind easily actually what happens most often, or just what happened most vividly? The ease of recall is not evidence of frequency. Treat it as a starting point for inquiry, not a conclusion. The antidote is to supplement memory with base rates. Ask, what does the actual data show? Then compare that to what your memory suggests. The gap between those 2 numbers is where the availability heuristic lives. The availability heuristic is perhaps the most democratic of all the cognitive biases. It does not discriminate by education, intelligence, or political affiliation. It operates on anyone whose brain encodes vivid memories more strongly than statistical patterns. Understanding it does not make you immune, but it gives you a tool, a pause between the vivid memory and the probability estimate. The world is not as dangerous as the headlines, and not as safe as the silence. Democracy runs on arguments, both bad and good. We all benefit when the quality rises. If these videos move that needle even slightly, please like and share. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. At its core, this channel exists for one reason: your self-empowerment, free of both political and religious dogma, and free of charge. Until next time, I'm John Bala. Think critically and choose wisely.